Hello, and thanks for joining us. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I was a massive Prodigy fan back in the day, and even bigger fan of the Ultra Magnum MCs where they stole the Smack My Pitch Up line. Um,
That was awesome, but I love how low energy your intro was after that really high energy chat. Like that just comes in, and you're just like, "Hello,
thanks, Seb.
you're welcome, John."
Hello, welcome. Smack My Pitch
Yeah.
Up.
Now
Hey,
we're talking.
LinkedIn outreach that isn't shite. So, some of you that know me might know that this was kind of inspired by me just getting absolutely fed up, as I'm sure all of us are, of getting the same old meaningless poorly focused nonsense landing day after day in my inbox. I've been doing outreach digitally and by post for many years now, successfully. And so I thought, you know what, let's take the opportunity to create a bit of a webinar that can share a bit more best practice. And also, I've got to be honest, give me something to send back as a reply to the people that hit me up with rubbish. So, few of the people that have hit me up with stuff, I've sent them a link to this, and one or two have come back, which is wonderful. So, yeah, so let's jump in. Today's agenda, without going through too deep, I'm going to talk about the basis of where the approach came from, which is strategic selling. Talking about ICP, which is incredibly important for being relevant. How to prospect with LinkedIn, and I'll be showing a demo of that. Other tools that you might want to use for prospecting as well as outreach. Then the basic principles of outreach. And that's really important. So a lot of the tools that I use, a lot of the techniques that I use are not dissimilar to those that the pitch slappers use. It's more the approach and also the magic of having someone that can create words that move people, which is what Sebastian does. Um, so we'll then talk about the recipient's mindset, which again is really important because these people are just like us. They're not sat there waiting to be told that they're going to have something 10x every single time they get something drop in their inbox. Show me you know me. Then standout copy in the last hurdle. Then I'm going to show a couple of examples. One that Sebastian and I have done for a client last year, which was multi-channel. So it started with direct mail before going into email and LinkedIn, but used a lot of the same techniques. And one that has just started in direct mail and literally hit the post yesterday, which Sebastian and I have been doing. So let's jump in. So who are we? Well, Sebastian is he's a marketing genius. He's a copywriter by trade, by training, but actually what he's really good at is writing words that move people. And that comes into both positioning and copy. And it's something that I feel that lots of people, particularly in this technological era, kind of underestimate about the power of marketing. Being able to say as few words as possible and get as big an impact as possible. And that's as much a part as brand positioning as it is kind of copywriting, and certainly as it is for kind of outreach. So he's managing director of Sober, private label. He has a dog called Harper, and interestingly, I didn't know who this upside down headed person was until I posted something on LinkedIn once. And he messaged me, he sent me a DM, which was kind of like a bit of a hard sell in a way. He wanted me to sell sober private agency services on a commission only basis, which I'm not going to do. But there's something in the way that he approached it and where he kind of said, I'm shooting my shot here. This is where we're at. Do you think you can help? Where I thought, do you know what? I will speak to this guy. And we've kind of worked as partners ever since. So, Sebastian, over to you to say nice things about me, hopefully.
This is the thing is I actually thought I was going first, and I didn't have anything nice planned. I just had a roast, which was largely that when I was growing up, like people always said, watch out for strangers on the internet. Don't talk to older men, don't talk to balding men. Um, and like John said, we met on the internet, and I think that's kind of weird, but we have, and we've been working very closely together, ever since. I think he's a great example of why you shouldn't meet people on the internet. But more importantly, he's a great example of a CMO, a fractional CMO. And John's built his own agency before successfully sort of cashing out, and moving on to bigger and better things. So all of the stuff that he's going to talk about today are things that he's done and also things that I know he's done, and things that I've seen work as well, which is part of the reason I like working with him, because there's no sort of bullshit, right? What you see is what you get, and things tend to work quite well. He was a big dog at the Lego group before being unceremoniously fired for trying to steal all of the Lego. When he pulls down his bins background, you can see that he's got a whole lot behind him. And he's also at NDL, and he's currently now, like I say, working as a fractional CMO. So, I can't stress this enough, but if you're marketing shit, John is the person that you should call.
Wow, thank
Was
you.
that nice enough?
Yeah, that was really nice. Although I
Okay,
should
cool.
point out that no Lego was stolen in the making of this. Yeah, I paid for all that, albeit admittedly on staff discount. But thank you. So that's us. We work together on client work. We work together on both of our own businesses, um, and we want to kind of share some of that best practice. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about strategic selling. So these were two books that I was introduced to probably in the late noughties, early tens, from Miller Hyman, who are a sales training group. Um, and what was really interesting here at the time, I was running the Europe office of a very sales-focused US agency. And so they were very aggressively selling, and we were trying to market. And what this did was it was a really nice meeting point, and it made both of us better. So the new conceptual selling, it talked about consultative communication, about kind of understanding what people need before you try to hard sell them in all honesty. And there's lots of great stuff in there. I would recommend it. And the new strategic selling kind of leads into what has now become known as account-based marketing. So this is about creating win-win opportunities, about understanding the entire buying committee. And what's important about this is it sets the mindset of trying to understand the person that you are trying to do business with, which is where so much cold outreach goes wrong because it comes in, it smacks you in the face, and it says, buy my white paper, read my this, that, and the other. I'm going to XXXXX. It just hits you with stuff without even understanding your business. And one of the ones that really, really boiled my piss and drove this recently was I was contacted by, I can't remember quite who, and I wouldn't name them anyway, but um, they wanted to help me upskill my team. I'm a one person business, deliberately a one person business. I don't have a team. You haven't done your basic research. Now, had they used the tools that we use today and that I'm going to be showing you today, they wouldn't have made that mistake. So let's start with the ICP, which to Sebastian is the insane clown posse. To me, a trained marketer is the ideal customer profile. And the reason why this is really important is because this is really making sure that you can be relevant to who you're reaching out to, whatever your service is, whatever you're trying to sell, whatever message you're trying to get across. If you're saying it too broadly, it's not going to land with most people. So being very tight about your ideal customer profile in each outreach campaign is super important because that way you can understand the kind of industry they work in, the kind of role they have, the type of businesses they work in, and really what it all comes down to is the type of problems that they might have that you can help them solve. So deep diving into the ideal customer profile is super important. Now, what you'll find with a lot of lead gen businesses or kind of lead gen consultants is that they'll try to lead you down a path of having the biggest list possible because if you hit 10,000 people, you might get 10 calls back. Um, we don't agree with that. We go the opposite way. Fine tune it as much as possible. It's tricky if you're just in a handful, but if you're in the hundreds or the low thousands, absolutely perfect because then you know that you're hitting people with something that's relevant, which is super important. And then Sebastian's piece later, memorable. So let me tell you about using LinkedIn for prospecting. There's a number of ways to do prospecting. I'm sure we're all heavy users of LinkedIn, and it's it's a world of kind of two extremes. It's a fantastic place to be growing your business, building a peer-to-peer network. There's so much good and going for LinkedIn. I absolutely love it, particularly now that Twitter has become a right-wing kind of I don't know, fire in effect. So I use LinkedIn a lot for keeping in touch with my peers, as well as kind of learning stuff, as well as prospecting. But also, it's full of two types of people as well. There are the hard salesmen, which we've talked about, and then there's the just the storytelling grifters, the humble braggers who, I got up at 4 o'clock this morning in order to fly 700 million miles and feed the hungry before coming back and doing 2 hours of meditation. And I then read 7 books and wrote 15. Um, took my dog for a walk, and then I made $700 billion. And it's just painful, right? But stick to the good side. So what I'll say is on LinkedIn, um, be careful with your feed. Pick and choose. Mute people, it's fine. Block people, it's fine. You don't have to accept every invite request. But if you're using it to build your network and you're using it for outreach, it can be spectacular.
I've recently just blocked John actually as a good example of, not being afraid to use the block button.
Wow. So is that what you'd call a cock block?
I mean, I didn't say it.
Well, thanks, Sebastian. Yeah, thanks for briefly saying something nice about me. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to find data with Sales Navigator. Okay, that almost rhymes. So LinkedIn Sales Navigator, it's the paid version of LinkedIn. It's not cheap, but it does give you stuff that no other version of LinkedIn and nothing but LinkedIn gives you, to be honest, particularly if you're a B2B marketer or salesperson. Um, and there's another tool that I use called EvaBoot, which is a browser plugin, and it allows you to collate and export data from LinkedIn. Um, and I'll explain why. So typically, when we do campaigns, we do multi-channel campaigns. We won't limit ourselves to just LinkedIn. So I want to know a business postal address, a business email address, and a LinkedIn profile for those ideal customers that we've identified, so that we can have every opportunity to reach out to them in a non-aggressive way. Let me show you how it works. So
While he does that, I will say you're statistically more likely to land more clients if you listen to Insane Clown Posse while building your ICP.
okay, I wish I would have known that. We could have had even better stats than we've had. So thanks for this. Do you know what? You're always all give and always helpful. He's got such a punchable face, hasn't he? So this is LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and there's two kind of searches. There's account, which is about companies, and there's leads, which is about people. Now you can use account obviously to kind of track down the businesses you want to reach out to, but ultimately you want to speak to people. We want people who are in a position to see the solution to their problems and commission someone to do that to see us. So I would normally lean in on lead. Now there's lots of great things here. Um, I am going to show you what I had set up previously. So this was something that I did for a talk for the Alliance of Independent Agencies, or seven I did as a talk for Independent Alliance of Independent Agencies a week or two ago. And just as an example, we wanted to find a very small and very targeted number of people that worked in stone tools. So you can go by current company if that's what you're looking to do, if you want to map out what a business looks like. And there are tools in LinkedIn Sales Navigator that lets you map out um, decision making panels. Company headcount. Now, had that person trying to sell me my team use this correctly, they probably would have known that a team wasn't useful for me. So company headcount is really important. The company type, again, I don't really do much business in local authority or public sector. So again, we're able to kind of nail it down there, narrow it down as much as possible. Headquarters location, again, we can choose as many or as few as these as we like. And normally what I do is kind of start broad and then start breaking down. We could choose a function. So it could be someone in business development, operations, marketing, accounting, or we can go by job title and or, in fact, and then the seniority level. So here I'm going for senior people on this particular one because I'm going for companies that are 1 to 10 people. So there's not going to be multiple layers of people in these businesses. So the director, the CXO, the vice president, the owner might be one of only 4 people. Um, and that's fine for this particular one. Past job titles, year in current company, year in current position, blah, blah, blah. Industry, super useful. Um, Groups can be useful too, because again, there are kind of subject matter groups in there that allow you to really break it down. And then we've got a whole other bunch of things. So following your company, best path in can be quite useful, or connections can be quite useful because that way You can, for example, build a list of people that are just second degree collections to you, in which case you have a mutual somewhere. Or you can find people that you don't have a mutual with, which can lead to different channels. So, for example, there's an example I'll be showing you a little bit later, where the second degree contacts I reached out to through LinkedIn, and the third degree we've done direct mail and email. And that's really it. That's it. And it will come up with a list. You select all and you save it to a list. Now, what you can then do, if you want to export it as data into a spreadsheet, is export with EtherBoot. So EtherBoot is a licensed platform. It's not particularly expensive. But what it does, it kind of literally just goes through and data scrapes. So many years ago at that American agency, we had a full-time person called Barry who just data scraped all day to build prospect lists for us. Um, Using this and a few other tools, I've basically killed Barry, which if you'd met Barry, you wouldn't miss him. He was a real miserable so-and-so. But it goes through and it acts like a browser and it just takes all of the information out. So it's a time saver. All of these are time savers. All of these are legitimate platforms. Everything is GDPR compliant for legitimate interest. And again, that's another reason why getting the ICP right is so important, because if they're absolutely the right person, then under the legitimate interest, you are speaking to someone that will be buying your services either from you or someone else. They're going to be buying your category. So we export that, we save all that, and we've got our prospect list. Any questions at that point? We will take questions at the end, but if anyone wants to dive in, that's absolutely fine. Okay. So then we do outreach with Duck Soup. So it is automated. So it's automated sequences. We connect, then message. And this is really where it comes into its own in terms of not being heavy-handed. You can use this tool and be heavy-handed. You can go immediately in with an immediate connect request and upsell. I don't do that. We don't do that, and the stats are better because of it. Let me show you how that works. So DuckSoup works as a browser plugin, and again, it just automates things. So it's a browser plugin. It uses the browser and it takes the steps that you would otherwise take, but means that you're not sat there for days on end doing it. So here at the moment, I've got a campaign set up, which is reaching out to software tech companies between 1 and 50 people, secondary contacts. So we've got people in common. And what you can see here is that so far I have added 1,900 people to this particular sequence. The platform has gone through to invite 1,444 people, not immediately, and I'll show you the sequence in a second. Of that, 27% have accepted. So that is 27% of the people that are now in my feed. They're in my network on LinkedIn. So if they're not in buying mode right now, which as we know from the B2B Institute and Ehrenberg Bass, 95% of people in B2B are not in buying mode right now of your target audience. If they're not, they're now in my network and they're going to be seeing my content. So as and when, hopefully this message is relevant and memorable, they will see me and they're more likely to come back. And then we get the responses, which is where we start to have a conversation. So the responses are kind of coming in at around 5 to 6%, which is slightly above average, but it's the difference between these people that were in the network and getting these people in here with the process that makes a massive difference. Um, so I'm going to show you here a classic sequence that we use. So the important thing with this tool and other tools like it that use, let's say, email or LinkedIn, so Smart Lead is one for email, Instantly is one for email, is that they don't overload the system. So they are slow and regular. So this will tick over and it will send out, I don't know, 20, 30, 100 a day over a period of time, because it's not going to overload the servers. It's not going to get you banned by anybody. You're not going to get shadow banned by anything. And so this sits in the background running the whole time. And that the enrollment thing to invited, enrolled, that's an uploaded spreadsheet, or it's a saved file from a save from LinkedIn. Um, but it's slowly inviting people and then it's following up with that. So what we do here is the first thing, once they're enrolled, is They get a visit from my profile. That's all. Just a visit. Nothing more, nothing less than that. Nothing said. And then a day later, they get another visit. So what this does is it means you show up in the notifications. You're not coming in completely cold. Sometimes I get people send me connect requests off the back of the visit, kind of saying, "You look interesting. Why have you been looking at my profile?" And that opens a conversation, which is fantastic. But if not, I then follow them a couple of hours after the second visit. Again, it's another notification. And only a day after that, so we're kind of 2.5 days down almost, will I send a connection request. And I'm not going to send a pitch in the connection request. I'm going to send an empty connection request because I don't want to assume anything at this moment. And I don't want them to assume anything. And I also just don't want to be a dickhead. So I send a connection request. If and only if they accept the request, then I send them a very short message over a day after they accept the request. So this is now all at their pace, and there's no automation after that. And what the message says in this case, so here I'm trying to sell my marketing services to technology providers, so people that have got great tech products. And the message we've got, very simple one, crafted by the brilliant but miserable Sebastian. I need to find some nasty things to say about him, don't I? Basically saying that, having a great product is only part of the job. Did you know that 63% of product purchases directly correlate with brand awareness? That's some research that I did recently. So making sure your customers know that they need your great product and that exists generates more sales. It's what's known as product market fit. Can I send you a video showing how it works? That's it. No more, no less. Very soft introduction, showing that I know them and their industry, talking about something which will be an issue for them. So I'm not going in talking my language, I'm talking their language. They're product companies. Most product companies understand the idea of product market fit, but don't understand how to execute it. So again, researchers come into all of this, and I'm asking them if I can send them something. I'm asking for permission. So it's kind of it's a vampire approach. You have to be allowed in, and I think that works. I think that works much better. And so what I have there is if they respond, and only if they respond, I then pick up manually. And I will send them a link to a video here that I've recorded on Loom. I'm not going to play it. It's a very quick 5-minute video that doesn't upsell my services, but what it does do is it talks about how product market fit helps businesses like theirs grow. I send them that. 3 days after that, I send them a little note manually again, asking if it was interesting. And I might follow up once or twice afterwards. That's literally it. That's the process. That's the sequence. Now, as you saw, we're picking up 27% of people are accepting the connect request. So we're building the network. My content is always on. Those of you that know me well will know that my content is always on, and it's kind of relevant to what I do. Um, Now, at the moment in my pipeline, I have 29 prospects who have asked for the video, which for a one-man business is no mean feat. So again, I'm running this slowly. I'm running this just as me. I've got 29 prospects who have asked for the video, and I've got 6 others who are further down the funnel, including one that I've got a proposal in right now. So I do, and I have picked up business through this, through soft selling. Let's go back here. So some of the other tools that I use, and I'm not going to talk you through these because these are for another time maybe, but you can also find data with AI. I like to use Bing Copilot to find directory or trade body members listings. So if you're working in a particular vertical, you can use Bing Copilot. You could use ChatGPT, but I like Bing because it's connected to a search engine and it will give you a link and it tends to hallucinate less. And there's a great tool called Browse.ai, which is a browser plugin. Again, it's a low-level license fee, $10 to $30 a month. And it really is the easiest thing in the world. You kind of just go, right, okay, I'm going to do one cycle of what it is I would like you to repeat. That trains the robot, and then it goes off. And like all those other ones I talked about, it's not going dark, it's not gray data, it's just doing manual automated. So it will then go through and copy and paste all of that data. It links directly into Google Sheets. So you can add that data directly into Google Sheets. You can upload your data from Everboot into Google Sheets. You can use these across the board. So again, I'm a big fan of Google Sheets because you can just leave this stuff running. Um, it's taken me a while to migrate from Office to Google, which has driven Sebastian absolutely mad. Uh, I hope you're proud of me today, mate, because this is a Google Slides presentation and not a keynote like the last one that we did that you got really.
And it's been flawless, hasn't it?
Well,
It's been absolutely flawless.
or maybe we'll leave that open to the floor when we get to the end and they can tell us. Um, and another tool I use for email verification. So hunter.io, not AI. I need to change that. Hunter.io. It's a data enrichment platform and it allows you to check email addresses and it will confirm whether or not they exist, whether or not they've been found on any of their kind of partner platforms. So that's another good one for finding email addresses. So the basic principles of outreach: pitch by invitation only, instigate a mutual and consensual exchange, work to their cadence, expect nothing, demand and expect nothing, but work to their cadence. They'll come back when they're ready. And so I'm going to hand over to Sebastian to talk about how to write great copy and positioning.
Thanks, John. That was good. I liked that. You did well.
Thank you, bud.
Um, I have fewer things to show you all, but probably just as much to say. The first thing is that no one gives a flying fuck about you, in cold outreach. And if you want someone that's going to pat you on the head and make you a warm milk, call your mum, because the people that you're pitching to do not give a shit. And so it's important to remember that, like all advertising, this is an intrusion. It is an interruption, right? You're jumping into someone's inbox, they're busy, they've got other shit on, and you're going, hey, you should totally buy my product. And they're like, fuck off, I don't care, who are you? So we need to be able to combat that. And when we remember that these things are an intrusion and an interruption, it forces us to think creatively. And if you think about sort of the best ad campaigns, and this is probably the easiest way to think about it, the ones you remember are the ones that make you laugh, or the ones that made you sort of feel some kind of emotion. So you want to focus in on either being emotive or being entertaining. Now, the things that John talked before about your ICP and knowing your customer, the more that you know your customer and you have your ICP focused, the more you can be emotive or entertaining for those people. If you're in anyone for anything company, say you're an accountancy, I always pick on accountants, and I don't mean to because they're great and mine has kept me out of prison. But they do the same thing and they do it for everybody, right? So it can make coming up with an ICP really, really difficult. So if you're in that situation, you need to build different campaigns for different ideal customer profiles and focus in on the emotions that you can, I was going to say exploit, and I will say exploit, the emotions that you can exploit on each one. Do not try to do them all at once, right? This is a fatal mistake that everyone makes. If you can't be emotive, that's fine. Be entertaining, be funny, be a little bit out there, be interesting. Um, find a way that feels comfortable for you, because the most important thing that you can do is make someone care about the thing that you're selling them. Now, you'll know this because you'll see it in all of your pitches that people send you on LinkedIn or that end up in your email. People are always saying, we, my. And like I say, no one gives a shit, right? The question you should be asking is, what can I do for this person? And if you approach your copy and you approach your outreach by saying, what can I do for this person? Then you're going to be more focused on being able to tap into their pain points slash emotions, and you're going to be more focused on talking about them and about their problems than you are in what you do. So a really good example, I got an email newsletter yesterday from Caspian Insurance. It was about 4,000 pages long and it talked about all the things they were doing. They're an insurance broker. I don't care. They set up my life insurance and I don't want to think about it again until I'm dead, right? So give me something. Show me why I should care enough about your newsletter. They didn't do that, so I unsubscribed. And then the very last thing, and this is where it gets kind of complicated and becomes one of those really easier said than done things, which is keep it simple. Now, if you're me, it's keep it simple, stupid. If you're John, I think it's keep it simple, sweetheart. But either way, keep it simple. Your first email, first draft of your first email, or LinkedIn outreach, I should say, might be really, really long, and that's okay. But go through and look at the superfluous words and figure out how you can take them out. There's a tool that you can use called Hemingway or Hemingway AI, and it assesses your writing and it tells you bits that you can edit. It tells you how to be more active in your sentences as well, because if we're getting really technical, active language is more appealing to people than passive language, and this will help you spot that. So, like the example that John showed, it was very simple. First name, a question, did you know? If you're asking a question, make sure that it's a question that someone can't say no to directly. This is the only way that rhetorical questions work in outreach and advertising. There's a really great example. If you read a newspaper headline and it ends in a question, the answer is almost always no. So it's like, is labor spinning out of control? No. And you'll read the article and you'll be like, oh, the answer to this is no, I've just wasted 5 minutes, right? So think about that when you're writing. It needs to be a question that they have to sort of think about. And then, we hit them with a stat sort of later on, so it shows that we've done the research. So this is only 4 or 5 paragraphs, but each paragraph is 2 sentences. And some of the best models that you can use, and I was going to plug the Washington Post, but I don't want to anymore, are like reputable kind of journalism organizations. Because if you look at the way a news article is written, the most important information starts at the top. The least important information is always at the bottom. And generally speaking, a paragraph is no more than 2 sentences or about 25 to 30 words. So these are kind of guidelines that you can use to make sure that you're keeping things straightforward, emotive, and as simple as possible. Next slide, please, Mr. Lyons. So show me you know me. This again really reflects what John was saying before about the product market fit. And this is why we always advocate for having a different campaign for each sets of your ICP if you don't have a tight niche in your company. If you do have a tight niche, this will be less of an issue. But if you don't, then take some notes. You want to make sure that the recipient is feeling like you know them, feeling like you know what their problems are, and that you understand what they're trying to do. So this could be, I mean, this is so simple, but a lot of people fuck it up. I get tons of emails and LinkedIn outreach talking about SEO. Sober doesn't do SEO, right? We do words, we do market positioning. We don't compete with Google's algorithm. We make people feel emotions through the words that we use, and we separate companies out from their competitors. So when I've got someone coming into my inbox, like a recruiter or someone saying, hey, I'm an SEO expert and I'd love to work for you guys, I know that you don't know me. And automatically that's a no. If you can refer to some of their clients or campaigns, it shows that at the very least you looked at their website. But the most important thing is identifying their prospects. So if you think about the last shit example that you got in your inbox, which was like, hey, John, I can get you 10 times more leads than you currently have. Think about whether the thing that you're offering to someone is actually the thing that they need. Most of us don't need 10 times more leads. We need 10 times better leads. So that would already set you apart, right? If you sent me an email that said, hey, I can get you 3 leads a month and each of those will be worth 3 million quid, all of a sudden I'm with you on this. I'm thinking. But if you're saying to me, hey, I can get you 30 leads a month, even if that total is 9 million quid, you've lost me because I can't handle 30 leads a month, right? So it's just thinking about what you can actually offer them and talking to their pain points and making sure that you know their problems. Next slide. So standout copy. I mentioned this before. If you're going to screenshot something in this, screenshot this. These are basically the sort of distilled rules for writing good copy, whether you're writing an ad or an article or anything. So do not talk about only yourself. We see this a lot. If you're on, and check your own website for this, how often do you talk about what you do and why you do it, but not what the benefit of that is to the reader of your website? You should be wanting to address the reader on their website. We call this the audience of one principle. And you'll notice it in radio too. I know no one listens to the radio anymore, but next time you're in the car or something, or you're dicking about on YouTube, check out a radio show. James O'Brien on LBC is really good for this. He often says you as though he's addressing just one person listening to the show, and this creates a feeling of intimacy. He has an audience of like 1.1 million people, but what we want is that feeling of intimacy, that feeling of singularity. So don't say we or I more than you. There is a golden ratio here, which is 3 to 1, I believe. So for every instance that you say we or I, refer to yourself, you should refer to the prospect 3 times. So again, you will cover that a lot. The other thing too, by the way, is don't fall into that trap of, and you see it less now, but I've still noticed that people do it. That sort of like he forward slash she thing. Just say they. It's easier, it's faster, it's more inclusive, and everyone sort of knows what you're talking about. But if you're like he, she, it's weird to read, it's sort of hard to understand. The next thing is don't talk about abstract things. So one of the ways that you can really show someone that you know them is by talking to their pain points, like we said, right? So how do you do that? Do that in a really specific way. So like I said before, I don't need help with lead gen, but if you could bring me a client worth 3 million quid, I'm listening and I'm interested in that. So instead of saying, hey Seb, how would you feel if I brought you 10 clients a month? Try, hey Seb, how would you feel if I helped you land a £3 million deal? All of a sudden, you're being a lot more specific and you're putting your money where your mouth is. Now, obviously, 3 million quid is like, yeah, I'm going to read that and be like, bullshit. But if if it was 5 grand or 2 grand or whatever, you want to sort of be specific and put your money where your mouth is as much as you possibly can. Be engaging. Like I said before, you really want to be emotive and you really want to be entertaining if you can. And always talk about the benefits. So we see this a lot with SaaS products specifically, and I think this sort of big swing to tech and tech marketing and product marketing, whatever the fuck that means. People tend to talk about the features of something. Our new app has 17 different colors, but they don't talk about what the benefits are. So what is the benefit to a client for buying from you? And there will be one. And like I said with my accountant earlier, my benefit for having an accountant is that it keeps me out of jail because I'm shit with money and I'm shit at remembering to do my tax and all that kind of stuff. And so she takes care of that. I don't go to prison. Great benefit. So there'll be things around there that you do as well, that you do better than your competitors. Ask your clients what they are if you're not sure. Send them a gentle email, get them on a call, and just say, hey, what do you think the biggest benefit of working with me is? Next slide, John. All right, I'm going to shut up after this one. So, the last hurdle. This is again something that's really just hygiene, but if you are sending an outreach campaign and you're offering something, make sure that what you're offering lines up with your website. I see this sort of time and time again where people will send a LinkedIn connection request and I'll say, hey, we can get you 10 times leads. And then I click on their website and their website does TikTok, right? I don't do TikTok. I mean, we do words. What the fuck do I need TikTok for? If you did Substack, I would be interested. And so part of that relevance piece is making sure you're not falling at the last hurdle, understanding that the people buy from you partly through researching you. So in that bit where John showed the video, talking about product market fit. The ideal scenario would be that someone watches that video, says, that's really interesting. This John guy knows his stuff. I'm going to check out his website. And then on his website, he's showing examples of product market fit. He's talking about product market fit. He's got case studies on product market fit. Don't check out his website because I don't think he does. But that is the sort of ideal solution here. If you need to, obviously you can set up a landing page that you can send people. You can do it through HubSpot fairly cheap. If you use Squarespace, you can do it for literally the cost of nothing. Just make sure that what you're selling lines up. And then the last thing is making sure that your messaging is consistent. So there was research done last year by System One that proved that good ads, emphasis on good, wear in, not out. So the more times people see them, the more effective they become. And this is true for all copy. So if you think about Specsavers, all of a sudden should have gone to Specsavers, right? They've been doing that for like a decade now, just hammering that same thing over and over and over and over. So make sure that your messaging is consistent and understand that if it hasn't worked in the first 3 weeks, that's fine. Keep pushing with it because the only person that's going to get bored of it is going to be you. And we see this a lot with people. They'll say, "Oh, maybe I should change the website." Oh, why? Well, because we haven't updated it in 6 months. Well, is what you do different? No. Okay, well then leave it how it is. When you start getting sick of saying it, that's the moment where other people start to notice you. So you want to be having nightmares about this shit. You want to be falling asleep at night thinking, fucking hell, I've seen the same email out, so many times and it says the same thing. And when you're waking up in cold sweats about it, people are just starting to open it. So give yourself time to play the long game. I mean, John's been running that product market fit thing for like months now. And like he said, he's got 29 people looking for the video. He's got a proposal out. He's got 6 people further down the line. So you just have to give yourself time. And I think part of that problem, and I'm sort of going off pace here slightly, is that everyone wants the results straight away, but that doesn't always happen. And part of that is because messaging consistency tends to fall over, and people, and John has accused me of this a lot in my personal life, throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes, I was going to
I
pick you
said
up on
it.
that.
There you
You've
go.
taken that one away from me.
Yeah.
I've literally been telling Sebastian for as long as we've been working together, every time he comes up with a brand new idea of, oh, maybe we're going to pivot this way, stop throwing the baby out with the fucking bathwater. You're good at what you do. Stop changing everything.
In my defense, though, I do have a lot of grand ideas, like this hoodie.
You do. That hoodie's cool. It doesn't
Yeah.
match the color on the screen though, which,
That's because your computer is shit.
well, I think you'll, well, we can judge that across the board, right? Because everyone's just seeing this from screen. Anyway. Thanks, Seb. That was really, really useful. Just wanted to pick up on something that you mentioned on the previous slide about research.
Mm.
Research is always valuable, even if you just have a conversation with one or two existing or previous customers, you're likely to find out something about how they see you or your business that you didn't expect. And that's worked for me literally everywhere I've been. So my last full-time hire, I was CMO at an agency called Gasp, fairly well-established agency, did some great work. And basically, through doing some interviews, we were able to find out exactly why it is they liked working with us, and we turned that into an outreach campaign that really delivered. So always speak to people. It doesn't cost much. Right. So going to show you a couple of quick examples. So this is something that Sebastian and I worked on last year for a company called Inversity. And so with this, we did multi-channel outreach. We had very little time to get across a brand new business in a new sector. So we used direct mail. So the newspaper that you could see there was sent out in the post. It was backed up by the LinkedIn branded ad that you can see overlaying it with the very smack in the face, divide the room but get into the room headline of which of your students are the Elons of the future, minus the character flaws. So what the business does is it trains people to use AI in the workplace. So
I feel like I have to point out, because Jared from Subway haunts me, that this was done before we knew he was a Nazi. Not Jared from Subway, but
yeah.
Elon.
Well, it's
Yeah.
before he came out full Nazi, wasn't it? He was just a bit of a dickbag at the time we did this.
Yeah.
But so we went out with the newspapers to create some awareness. We then followed it up with email sequences, and then we followed it up with LinkedIn. And of course, we had all of those data. So through that, we had a couple of events that were our kind of lead into the pipeline, and they were both completely oversubscribed. So we lent into what was going to be interesting. We lent into the needs of the end recipient, which in this case was schools, and we didn't overdo it, and it worked really well.
The other thing we did with that too is the newspaper itself is a full newspaper. So you can flick through and there are different advertisements for university with slightly different positioning, all focusing on the benefits. And then we turned some of their case studies into journalism style news articles. So it wasn't just a front cover thing. You could pick it up, you could read all about it.
Yep. And very quickly, one that literally went out in the post yesterday. So this is Seb and I identifying where we want to do business, and I've worked with some big and cool and sexy brands in the past. I won Manchester United as a client. I spent some time at the Lego Group. I just like solving problems, and for me, B2B and professional services is where there's a big need for just a little bit creative, just thinking outside the box. So This is a direct mail that we sent out yesterday to companies in the environmental sector. Now, the important thing here is that that paper is got one here, which you can't see because we've got the screen on. The paper is seeded paper, and it's from a wonderful company called the Little Green Paper Shop. And the reason I mention them is because what I want to do with this package is to create a memorable moment when someone receives this at their desk that they're not going to get with an email, they're not going to get with a LinkedIn. They sent the paper to me in a beautifully wrapped parcel, then wrapped perfectly in kind of tissue paper. And it was such a joyous experience opening their pack that I've ended up emailing them back going, look, yeah, where can I review you? Because more people need to know about you, which is why I mentioned their name here today. It's the first time I bought from them, but it will not be the last. So getting this note on a piece of paper that you can literally put in the garden and it will grow flowers is going to be much more memorable than I can 10x your ABC. And so, just a simple example here, and what we have for all of the contacts that we sent this out to is their email address, is their LinkedIn profile, and ultimately, direct mail is great at being memorable. People don't tend to respond to it so much. So, we send this and then we follow up on the digital channels where it's easier for people to respond. And that's it. I hope that wasn't too fast. Going to open the floor to some questions. We've got one from Paul already, which I'll take, but please feel free to put anything in the chat or just kind of come off mute and ask any questions. We've got a few minutes to do that. So Paul has asked, is sales nav necessary for the process to work? Um, it's necessary for the process that I showed you, but it's not the only process out there. So you can use those AI tools for prospecting. You probably can use LinkedIn search, but you can't be as specific with the ICP with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. It's probably of all of the monthly license platforms I use for this kind of stuff, I think it probably has the higher ticket. So I think it's like 70 quid a month.
Yeah.
Not huge, but not cheap. But it absolutely gives the value for me. So yes, there are other ways of doing it, but I would advise giving it a try.
Yeah, no, I remember back in the day, I used when duck soup used to be free, or an element of it used to be free, and I'd set a search like a basic search, and then I'd just run it and connect with anybody and pitch slap them, which obviously that's it. We're talking quite a while back now, but yeah, this is it's really got my cogs turning. Thank you, John.
Oh, brilliant. You're welcome. Absolutely welcome. Thanks for asking the question. Any other questions?
I did have another quick one, John. Firstly and foremost, thank you to you and Seb. That was, without a shadow of a doubt, and I've done a lot of these things, one of the most entertaining and enlightening processes that I've gone through with regards to this. So well done, the pair of you. I have the Everboot plugin. I have a Sales Navigator account. I export to Everboot because it's the easiest way of building the list and then doing what I need to do, because sometimes Sales Navigator does throw up some anomalies, to say the least. But one of the things that you mentioned was Hunter IO straight AI. Correct it on your next slide, as you quite rightly said. However, Everboot also allows you to ping the emails. Is
Yeah.
there any reason why you don't use Everboot to ping the emails?
So I do. When I'm using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I'll always use Everboot in the first case. As you know, it doesn't always pick up all the email addresses. So Hunter is a good backup for that. But if you're using the AI route or another route, say LinkedIn without that Sales Navigator, it can help you find the emails. So it's just another tool that I find useful. But no,
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, it was just a question because I've got a monthly pay plan on Everboot, which gives me X amount of credits. Half of those are used when you export from Sales Navigator. The rest is to ping the emails. What I tend to do is I take what hasn't been found, stick it in Rocket Reach. So I just wondered if there was a reason for Hunter, AI, IO, Biden, whatever.
IO, let's assume that I've already changed the changed the slide. Um,
To,
yeah,
to, to be honest, mate, I didn't know whether it was IO or AO before you started this conversation. So
Oh,
don't
there you,
worry.
and fortunately, after this explanation, you still don't because I'm talking nonsense. But no, I mean, there are so many tools out there, and Rocket Reach is another one. Some people use Apollo. I mean, I think Sebastian's a fan of Apollo. Hunter just happens to be the one that I like using.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I just wanted to check if there was a specific reason. All right, appreciate that. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Anything from anyone else?
Yeah, I'd love to ask a question, please. So I do write outreach sequences for clients, but somewhere I feel they fall down quite a lot, and I would love your input on it, is that you mentioned at the beginning about like the 3% rule and that not everyone's ready to buy right now, and the importance of organically just posting on LinkedIn regularly. That's the bit I think I see people fall down on, is that they can do the outreach, but they don't consistently then post on their own profiles. So I'd love to get your view on that as well.
Yeah, I mean it's the 95/5 rule. And yeah, it's empirically proven. And it makes sense if you think about it. Kind of, yeah, if you think about all the things that you might buy and consider yourself a buyer of, how many are you going to buy right now? Not that many.
Mm.
So, yeah, 95% of people who will be buying from your category are not buying right now. So what do you do for them? Well, you need to be memorable. And the reason that I like using Duck Soup and the reason I like the sequence of sending a blank connect request is because, yeah, I've got them there now. Um, it can be tricky with the content creation because it can feel very arduous and it can feel very heavy lifting. And I mean, it's something that, yeah, Seb and I talk about quite a lot. He doesn't like doing it. I've managed to find a way and a cadence where I do. So I'm not one of these post something daily people. I don't think that's necessary. But I think every now and again, and it could only be monthly, every now and again, you want the opportunity for the people that you've reached out to see your name, your face, and your headline. Most importantly, that headline should back up everything that you did the outreach for in the first place with something relevant in their feed, just to keep them ticking over, just to keep them warm. So I do a kind of video blog every 2 weeks, roughly. And I use a tool called Opus Clip to turn that into a bunch of clips to make it go further. I use transcriptions to turn it into a blog, which I then kind of do actually kind of write around properly. But I basically have one idea every 2 weeks and stretch that out. And I'm probably on LinkedIn more than I'd advise people to, but it's kind of it suits me. It works. I've got the cadence of it. But I think kind of if you're not putting something out there monthly that just reminds people why they're connected to you, you're missing the opportunity. So I think for anybody, and my advice would be, yeah, to your clients, have a look at the people that are your connections. How many of those do you actually remember why you're connected to them? How many of them do you actually know what they do? And even more to the point, some of them would have changed what they're doing. And so I have brought business in from people that I've connected through one route who are now they're in a different place or I'm in a different place or both of us, and I've posted something relevant and I'm relevant and I'm a known entity. So I think it's probably just a case of always making sure that whatever you do is something you can stick to. Don't set yourself targets that you're never going to stick to because something
Mm.
is better than nothing.
And this is an as well as and not an instead of, but some of us do have a face for radio and shouldn't be out there making video content. So if you are one of those people,
Wow, mate,
like,
that's really brutal. Thanks.
I
This,
mean, I
this
was talking about me, but
You weren't.
is why my
the
camera's off, Seb.
thank you, Paul. I do like my eyes. Um,
Right, right. Connection request denied.
so the one of the things you can do is advertising, right? And we don't really talk about it that much, but it does build more of that context, and more of those connection points with people. One thing, so there's a company called Stamp, which is spelled STANNP, N for November, and they do the automated sending out of postcards. And so one thing that I really like to do is come up with a really good ad or some really good copy on the back of a postcard, customize the front of it so it's got my logo on it, and then send that out to people that I'm also emailing. So that gives them a tactile, fairly cheap remembrance of who I am. So we might do that on a monthly cadence, right? Or every 2 weeks. The other thing as well, and this is more time intensive and a bit more expensive, but that newspaper that we put together for university, these kinds of things will sit on people's desks for longer than something will stay in someone's feed. So if you're really, really, really like against posting on LinkedIn, and I have called John at times and been like, fuck LinkedIn, it can fuck right off. It's a waste of my time. I hate everybody on it. I'm not doing it anymore. And he's like, calm down, you're a man child, but it does push you to think about other things, right? So I'm currently in the process of booking an out of home campaign for Sober, and have written some ads that will go up around the city in the next couple of months. And then I'm tying that in with a leaflet drop that the Royal Mail is doing, which will have the same ad on it. So we'll have a cadence of um, out of home ads, leaflet drop, out of home ads, leaflet drop. You can buy 10 sites from Global for like 2 grand, and they're up 24/7 for 2 weeks. And then depending on how I said 10 grand, I meant 2 grand, sorry. And then depending on how many postcodes you go after with the Royal Mail drop, that can be as low as 500 quid, or as high as 20,000, depending on how much you want to spend, right? So there are ways that you can work it so that you're giving people different touch points, tangible touch points, and still driving the same message home, even if your clients aren't that good at posting on LinkedIn. And it might be an easier option to say to them, hey, well, why don't we do a flyer drop? You need to write one flyer, design it once, and then just remember every month to push the button to get it sent, right? So yeah, that's just and as well as not an instead of for you.
Absolutely, and it's worth saying there's been research over the last couple of years that shows that kind of spreading your media over different channels will create even more effectiveness. So I've just scrolled down and seen there's some more questions. So Tony, duck soup sequence. You read somewhere a drop off in response is cliff edge for anything more than 5 steps in sequence. Um, so I think the thing to point out here is that there's only 2 steps that really, really are asking anything of the recipient. So there's the connect request, and then there's the can I send you a video? So all of the other stuff is really just kind of priming. I typically, if I do an email sequence, for example, email, you don't go out blank to start with, but I'll do 3, maximum 4. I wouldn't do any more than that. Um, Faisal, yep, as Seb said, there will be a recorded link sent out. And have I noticed a difference between blank connect request or putting a tiny connection note in? Um, I'm going to kind of say yes and no. I'm going to say no because I haven't actually tested it, but I'm going to say yes because I believe in what I'm doing, and I'm going to explain why. Um, so it's very, very, very difficult to be relevant in a connect request without saying too much or too little. And I've had plenty of connection requests that say things like, "Hey, we're both in marketing," or "Hey, we both breathe oxygen." And to me, it just looks disingenuous. And you've got the other ones that try to say too much. Um, I'll be honest, I've come to and Sebastian is the wordsmith, so maybe he can do this better than I, but I haven't come up with anything that I think adds sufficient value, and I'm happy enough with the 27%, is the truth of it. So if you've got any thoughts there, Rachel, if there's anything that you think you've tried or that might work, I'd be happy to put it to the test and let you know because we've got
Um,
the time.
it's just like from a personal thing, if I get a request from someone that doesn't say anything, I'm a bit like, who are you?
Yeah,
like, and then I have to investigate who they are,
yeah,
I suppose. Whereas I feel like if there's some kind of personal, like that emotive kind of personal element to, I've read this, it sounds really interesting, but quite quick and snappy because obviously you've only got a short
yeah.
word count, that I feel that I'd be more willing to be like, okay, I'll request. So that's kind of
I mean, I think it's a very good point, and I haven't yet found a way of doing it in bulk. Yeah, so the whole point of this,
yeah, that's the
it's
thing.
kind of
Yeah,
it is bulk, but it isn't intended to feel impersonal. Um, we have been playing, or I have been playing with AI. Oh, AI is the first time we said, oh no, it's not. We said Hunter.ai incorrectly earlier. I have been playing with AI for some of the email outreach, and I'm doing a test at the moment where, and I'm not, I've seen so many of those. Hi, I see, I got one recently, which just, oh man I can't remember what it was trying to sell me, but clearly they'd picked up on where I live, and it was like, yeah, and if this doesn't work for you, we'll come down to Loughton, which is where I live, and we'll buy you lunch at the name restaurant here. There is no restaurant called that in Loughton. It just isn't one, and you've tried so hard that you've overstepped. And so, kind of what I've been testing is similar low key kind of consensus building outreach through email, but with a single line of a personal icebreaker. So, I've seen what you do here, and I think this pit thing of it is interesting. And then the more generic stuff that isn't designed to be overly personal because it's a very tricky way to go. And kind of I was at the Festival of Marketing last year, and there was a futurist giving a talk about how personalization at scale is going to change marketing forever. And what was interesting is that the opening keynote from Mark Ritson basically said the reason that advertising works is because we all experience the same thing and personalization is irrelevant. And I think there is an element of that. There is an element of that. And also, with what Sebastian's doing with the digital out of home and the flyers, it's not as expensive as people think, but people think it's expensive. So it has that costly signaling part of it. So it feels like you're established, you're making an effort. This isn't fly by night. And I think one of the issues that we have, particularly with automated outreach on digital, is that we know just everyone is doing it and that there are machines just churning through this crap all the time because it's cheap. So kind of taking the effort, I think, is a bit better. I can't remember where I started with this one. I'm just going off on one now, aren't I? Wibble, wibble, wobble, wobble. But yeah, I mean, it's something that I'm constantly testing, and I am a user of AI. I think it's here, its time is here. It's the software of the current generation. Software, did it take jobs? Well, people stopped painting watercolors as well, it wouldn't have been DVDs, was it? VHS covers stopped being watercolor paintings and started becoming Photoshop. And yeah, I think AI is the next thing. But it's about how we use it. And
John can say that because it's not his job that AI is coming for.
well, I hope not. I don't think it's coming for your job either, Sebastian, because you, as I said, you write words that move people. AI can write words that save people the time of writing words, and that might change. That might change, but I still genuinely think that yeah, kind of moving people's emotions is a very human thing, and AI's got a long way to go. Sorry, went into a random one there. Well, I think we've slightly overrun for a couple of minutes, so I'm going to say thank you very much to everyone that joined. I hope that was useful.